So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our webinar today. My name is Aaron Roberts. I'm Workforce Lead for Active Norfolk, and I'm running this webinar with my colleague Rich Hoey, who I'll hand over to shortly. Hopefully, we won't have any technical difficulties, but please do accept our apologies if we do. So, like I say, if you do have any issues, just pop something in the chat box, just obviously let us know, and we'll see if we can actually sort it out. This webinar is obviously a partner support webinar. It's focusing on the Sport England's Community Emergency Fund, and we hope obviously it has all the information you need. And let's say any questions, we will be pausing for questions a couple of times during the presentation. If you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat box, that'd be great. We have a long history of working with Sport England, and they are our primary funder. So we want to increase the reach of information relating to their current package of support. It's aimed at helping the sport and physical activity sector come through this challenging time. We fully appreciate it's a difficult situation for many clubs, groups and organisations and individuals. And as such, our current priorities are twofold and align with those of Sport England. Firstly, we want to ensure people are supported to stay active during this time, as we know the value of physical activity in helping both physical and mental health. And secondly, we want to support the sector to access the financial help that is available. So moving to the next slide. So just a bit of virtual housekeeping. We're obviously relying on the IT working. So as I've sort of said, if you could please turn off your cameras and mute your microphones, it should hopefully help with signal quality. We will be recording the webinar and we'll post this and the supporting slides on our website, social media and Facebook page, and you'll also get them individually. If you have any questions throughout, obviously please pop them in the comment section and we'll make the time to answer as many of these as possible. We try to be as comprehensive as we can in pulling the webinar together, so hopefully most of your questions will be answered as we go. I will now pass over to Rich. Rich, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear, Aaron, thank you.
So I'll just pass over to Rich to take us on from here. All yours, Rich.
See just a couple of comments in the chat box there. A bit of a crackly connection. Hopefully it will be okay and settle down. It might not be consistent throughout the whole webinar. Hopefully, if you can bear with us, it will be good enough. So morning, everyone. As Aaron says, many thanks for joining us. It's great to have representation from so many different organisations joining us. We've got local authorities, charities, voluntary sector organisations, NGBs, clubs, and even guest appearances from a couple of members of the Active Norfolk team, I think. Hopefully the session will answer many of the questions you may have on Sport England's emergency fund, but you can also email Sport England themselves, and they have a dedicated email address which is coronavirus@sportengland.org for any further clarification. It's probably worth noting that this email address is likely to be inundated with inquiries, so responses may not be particularly quick. So you are welcome to send any questions through to Aaron, and we'll be happy to help wherever we can. For anyone joining us on the webinar from outside Norfolk, welcome and thanks for joining us. Please do note that you'll need to contact your local active partnership for further support, and the link at the bottom of this slide will direct you to their website. We're going to start with information on the Sport England funding and primarily their emergency fund, and then at the end of this section answer any questions before moving on to outline some of the additional support that Active Norfolk are currently offering. So this slide shows the Sport England funding announcement overview. They've actually been really excellent at getting out a quick response to the sector. We know the last few weeks have been really challenging for everyone, and we're all trying to balance work, personal and voluntary commitments. We're also digesting and interpreting a massive amount of information with uncertainty over the length of the disruption. Within this context, Sport England have announced £195 million worth of funding. Their priority, as mentioned earlier, is supporting the sector now and into the medium and longer term and keeping the nation active. Sport England have announced several funds aimed at ensuring the sport and physical activity sector is supported during this time, and we'll focus this section of the webinar on the 20 million emergency fund. It's important to emphasise that this money is targeted to sports clubs that are experiencing short-term financial hardship. The funding is retrospective, and as you can see, it covers the period from the 1st of March to the 31st of July. The other funding on this slide will only affect you if you are already funded by Sport England. If you are already in receipt of a Sport England grant, you'll need to contact your case manager. They will be able to help you re-profile your grant to deal with the current financial hardship, or help you amend your current project timetable and targets in light of delays to delivery associated with the current situation. So please contact your Sport England case manager if you have a live grant before applying to this Community Emergency Fund. So who can apply for this emergency fund? The emergency fund is really light touch and simple. It's an online application process that can be found via the coronavirus section on the Sport England homepage. At the bottom of the page, past the frequently asked questions, you will find the button to apply, and this will take you to the online application form. Beyond the details you would expect to input, you'll get a drop-down menu for the type of organisation you are. Local sports clubs are top of the list, alongside voluntary and community sector organisations and small charitable trusts, as well as regional or county level organisations and leagues. As well as the options on the slide, you will also get a choice of not-for-profit organisations, community interest companies, or other social enterprises, companies limited by guarantee, and registered societies. There is also an option to choose other if you don't constitutionally fit into any of the boxes mentioned. Current guidance from Sport England is that you can only apply once for this funding. However, they will review this on an ongoing basis in case measures result in organisations requiring additional top-ups to funding. As you can see, this fund is aimed squarely at the non-commercial sport and physical activity sector. So a large statutory organisation such as local authorities, including county, district and parish councils, and educational establishments are not eligible to apply. Equally, commercial leisure operators and individuals who are self-employed may not apply, but can instead apply to other government schemes aimed specifically at them. If we do have organisations such as these on the webinar this morning, even if you are not eligible, hopefully you will be able to help us share this information with organisations that are. So this fund is really one of last resort. If you can claim via the government funding that was announced a few weeks ago, then you will not be eligible for this funding in terms of staffing or business rates. New activities and events are not eligible. This is an emergency fund and not one for development. So capital costs and costs beyond the 31st of July are also not supported by this fund. They will fund relatively standard fixed costs that during lockdown you will still be paying. If you own or rent a building like a clubhouse or bowling club, for example, or own your own ground and are paying overheads or utilities associated with it, while income generation is suspended, this is certainly something that you should be applying for. Casual staff is perhaps one of the trickiest areas, as the government guidance around casual staff is not really 100% clear. This is where your account showing what you have paid out over the last year on staff, utilities and rent will be useful to provide as evidence. So Sport England will fund between £300,000 and £10,000 through this fund. On an exceptional basis, they may fund more than 10,000, but this really will be an exception to the rule. The assessment period is obviously a challenge for Sport England. Usually it would be around 12 weeks for decisions on their funding streams, but in this instance, they're aiming for a response to applicants within 7 to 10 working days. This timeframe applies to both successful and unsuccessful applicants. The grant will fund income losses from the 1st of March 2020 through to the 31st of July 2020. So don't forget to project those losses for the period up until the end of July. It really goes without saying that to ensure this funding supports as many clubs across the country as possible, you must be realistic in what you apply for. I'm sure you won't be, but please don't be greedy. It's worth re-emphasising that you are only able to apply once. However, Sport England will review this as it becomes more clear exactly how long club activity will be suspended for. If you are a seasonal sport and finish at the end of April, for example, just claim for those months. However, if you are a cricket club or other summer season sport, you'll need to project your losses appropriately, and using last year's accounts is probably the easiest way to do this. So if at this point you think you are still eligible to apply and may have a case for funding, then there are 4 main criteria that your application will be assessed on. These are the audience and reach that your organisation works with, the role your organisation plays, your financial need, and importantly, the impact on your organisation if you do not receive this funding. So we'll look first at the audience and reach. In terms of audience and reach, question 29 in the application form states, please describe the work that your organisation does and who in the community takes part in your activities. It's important to emphasise that the most recent guidance we're being given by Sport England is that priority will be given to organisations that deliver in disadvantaged areas, including areas of rural deprivation, and organisations that work with people from lower socio-economic groups. On the Active Norfolk website, you will find significant amount of data and insight down to ward level, which will help you understand the demographics of the area in which your organisation operates. The link to this section of our website is in the slide, and if you require any additional help interpreting the information, please do contact us and we'll be happy to help. Remember, you may also be able to make a case that much of your membership comes from these areas, even if your club is not wholly based in a deprived area. Other key target audiences for Sport England include women and girls, disabled people, lower socio-economic groups, Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups, LGBT, older people, and those living with long-term health conditions. So if you work with any of these underrepresented groups, then it's important that you highlight this in your application. They will also want to know how you are staying in touch with your membership and participants, and directly ask this question in the application form. This is really important in keeping those people who are already engaged in sport and physical activity still engaged when normality returns. We do not want levels to drop, and clubs need to retain their members. So Sport England will be very interested in the efforts you are making to retain and connect your membership and participants and keep their sense of belonging to the physical activity and sport that you provide. The guidance is clear that priority will be given to organisations that have actively delivered or enabled community sport and physical activity in the last 12 months, and is proactively staying in touch with participants and members during this COVID-19 period. Use question 30 to make it particularly clear to Sport England, who don't know all the amazing work you do locally, how you are communicating with your participants and members, and the role you play in those people's lives. If this is something you are currently struggling with, then there is some helpful information covering this specific topic on the Club Matters website. It covers some innovative ways that you can communicate and engage as a virtual club. You may well be doing lots of this already, and if you are, that's fantastic. Just make sure you include this within your application. So with this fund, Sport England are interested in the short-term financial impact of coronavirus. They know many clubs and small organisations will not have significant reserves, and they want to get funds out as quickly as possible. However, you will need to tell them how you will spend their funding and how you have calculated the value of the funds you are asking for. Club accounts from the last 12 months will help show Sport England what your fixed costs are in terms of utilities and rent, for example, and what sort of casual staff you employ during the March to July period, and how much they cost. And this will help to verify what you are requesting. If you do not have any kind of prepared accounts, it may be worth looking at bank statements over the last 12 to 18 months and detailing where your fixed costs are to justify your request for funding. Sport England are also interested in the reserves you have. They absolutely recognise that clubs and organisations should have reserves, which may be related to sinking funds or facility improvements. If this is the case and your reserves are significant, you may wish to provide committee minutes proving this is the case and why these funds are restricted. You do not have to submit this information, but the more you submit in support of your application, the easier and quicker it will be for Sport England to assess your application. As you go through the application process, it will explain how to submit additional and supporting documents. We know that a number of Norfolk-based clubs have been required to go back and submit additional information, so providing this upfront will certainly speed up the process. Lastly, they will ask what the consequences of not getting funding will be on your organisation. It might be the demise of your club or serious financial hardship, or it might mean that you have to run a reduced programme in future, reduce the number of teams you operate, or an inability to fund the training required by your volunteers. Again, it's really important that you communicate this clearly through your application. Be clear also on the effect to your participants and members. How will their opportunities to be active be restricted if your organisation does not receive emergency funding? Active Norfolk are here to help throughout this process. We've been working with Sport England for many years and would be really happy to help you where you need it with applications and beyond during this very unusual time. We want you to return to your sport and physical activity strong and ready to go and engage your members into getting active again. We're all missing our sport. So let's talk very quickly about the application process. As mentioned previously, it's an online application process with no option to submit a hard copy. For those of you that have made applications to Sport England in the past, it's worth noting that this application is made via a live form, so you will not be able to save as you go through and come back to it later. To help you plan your application, we've provided a summary of forms and will circulate also each chance for entering them all into the application. Again, as mentioned at the beginning of this session, Sport England are aiming for a quick turnaround of between 7 to 10 days, so you shouldn't be left waiting too long once you have submitted your application. The application form consists of 33 questions. Questions 1 to 22 are the easy ones as the warm-up and are all about you and your main point of contact in your organisation. It's questions 23 to 33 that are the important ones to focus on. This is where you make the case for why your club needs to access this emergency funding. As mentioned before, tell your story really simply and do refer to the frequently asked questions on the Sport England website for clarification on any specific queries that may arise as you work through the application. Before you apply, there are some key points we encourage you to consider. Firstly, is this the right fund for your organisation? Does your need fit more neatly with one of the other government funding schemes? And is your organisation eligible to apply? Take a detailed look at the criteria for eligibility and the priority outcome areas for Sport England. This will help you be clear within your application and make a robust case. If you are still unsure, we're happy for you to contact us and ask any further questions. Secondly, you will need to be confident that you have accurately calculated how much money you are asking for and exactly what it will be covering. So a little bit of insight and some top tips from Active Norfolk. We know that Sport England have already received a lot of applications. As of the 24th of April, they'd received in excess of 6,000. But do be reassured that applications are still being accepted at this time. But I would reiterate that the sooner you are able to apply, the better. That said, don't rush your application in place of putting together accurate information that can help make a strong case. But this funding opportunity should really be a priority for your organisation. The success rate of applications so far has been high, with most unsuccessful applicants either not being eligible or actually having reserves that they could be using to help them through this time. It would be really worthwhile typing out your answers before entering them into the application and getting a friend or family member to cast their eye over it before submitting. This will help to make sure you are being clear and concise, which will give a good indication that Sport England will also understand your application. Sport England have also announced some other funds, particularly the Innovation Fund. This fund is not open for applications as yet, but it will be there to respond to ideas that could get people physically active and motivate them to move more as restrictions are eased. The fund will look to accelerate good ideas and get us all back on our feet. If you follow our social media and sign up for our newsletter on our website, we'll announce news on these as soon as we know more. We're keen to encourage as many applications as possible from Norfolk, and as directed by Sport England, we'll really focus our efforts on supporting organisations that are reaching those most impacted by COVID-19 and where inequalities are widening. So if you would like help completing the application, a quick bit of feedback before you submit, or have any additional questions beyond today, please feel free to contact us using the details in the slide. We're also aware that some national governing bodies are offering support with this, so also contact your NGB to see if they can offer some support as well. They may have specific insight on successful applications from your particular sport or activity. So we'll pause there and see if there's any questions that have arisen or any further clarification we can provide before moving on to the next section. How are we looking, Aaron? Is there
There's been
anything
no
particular
questions in the chat box. If anyone has got anything, just want to pop in. I say we've got a few minutes here just to actually answer any questions. If there's anything need clarifying, as Rich said, we had one question come in prior, which was, let me just pull it up, which was around a individual coach claiming funding for sessions as part of a community gym. Regards to that, obviously, if the community gym are obviously continuing to do activity and obviously need to obviously sustain activity, obviously they can apply on behalf of the community gym, and then obviously it's up to the community gym how they obviously move down, obviously the money down, obviously how they spend it. Obviously it would have to come from the community gym, the applications obviously do it. Chris has said we've been turned down for business interruption insurance. So let me unmute. If I unmute you, Chris, you can obviously, if you want to.
Chris, it might be worth contacting us separately on that
one. And there's a question from Alice there, which is
Alice is, yeah, so we've given a rent-free period to our hirers. Will they be able to claim the rent they would usually pay or not? I would think if they didn't have a rent-free period, then they potentially would be able to claim the rent that they would need to pay to yourselves during this period from Sport England. I probably need to know a little bit more about that specific question, but as I say, do feel free to contact us after this session and we can hopefully help.
So yes, Jemima, yeah. So obviously, if the instructor is running the virtual classes as part of the community gym, obviously it's part of obviously sustaining the activity to obviously the target audience. Obviously, as long as you're obviously specific with who it's targeting, obviously with the community gym, obviously being focused at obviously inactive is the community gym. If the community gym applies, obviously they should be entitled to receive funding to sustain the activity, because the activity that has already been going on. But like I said, it would have to obviously come from the gym, not obviously the instructor. It obviously the gym would claim their money, then obviously, like you normally would obviously pay the instructor to deliver obviously the virtual classes. Anything else before we move on from anyone?
Not, yeah, I think we'll move on to the next section. As I say, some of these questions may be reasonably specific and particular to your own scenario. So perhaps you can drop Aaron an email following this, and we can pick it up with you and pick up any issues individually. Do you want to get the next slide ready, Aaron?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So there may be some clubs that don't actually need emergency funding to see out this period, and this might not be their first concern. But regardless of this, Active Norfolk wishes to support our clubs and organisations at this time. We don't have big pots of money to do this, but we do want to share our skills and time as much as we can with all of you. We've pulled out a few of the major things we've been working on during this time, and the first is around safeguarding. The pandemic is generating some unprecedented safeguarding risks, so we've created a one-stop resource for safeguarding advice during this time. This is for anyone who has any safeguarding concerns, and it contains useful links to advice and guidance from the Child Protection and Sport Unit and contacts for all the key safeguarding partners. Also worth mentioning is that safeguarding training is also now available online for first timers, so this is an excellent way to save some money and get your workforce through this mandatory training. As we mentioned at the start, we're here to support the sector throughout this pandemic and have a designated page for this support. We're working with our colleagues across the Active Partnership Network nationally to share information and provide access to resources more effectively. This section of our website includes access to resources from UK Coaching, Club Matters, Simpsborough, amongst others, as well as information about national and regional funding opportunities. We've also collated guidance on practical club matters, such as holding virtual AGMs and moving your committee online, which has been produced by Club Matters on behalf of Sport England. We're also trying to collate all the free training that is currently being provided, including the safeguarding training previously mentioned. On this section of our website, you'll also find links to the Moving Healthcare Professionals Physical Activity and Health e-learning programme, and this free resource includes 11 modules. We have provided as much information as possible for people to remain and get active by developing an Active at Home section on our website. This is dedicated to information, guidance and resources to help us all be active at home and to provide a central hub of information for the physical activity sector to access the support that is available. We've pulled together a selection of resources for people of all ages and abilities, including adults trying to juggle home working and homeschooling. You can access a range of quick home workouts, including cardio and strength-based sessions. There's activities included for children and young people, and an extensive resource for vulnerable adults and older people, including those living with a health concern. We've pulled together a synthesis that can be done at home, distributed to the homes of vulnerable adults without access to the internet, to support them to be active at home. If you are from a local authority or an organisation supporting this audience in particular and might be able to help us get these packs to those in need, it'd be great to hear from you. For people living with disabilities, we've compiled resources from a range of disability organisations, in addition to our specially commissioned On the Move virtual physical activity each week. You'll also find lots of examples of coaches and providers who have gone virtual to continue to engage with various audiences during lockdown. We're encouraging our partners in the sport and leisure sector to adapt and develop their own virtual online classes, which we will help to promote across our communication networks. If you use our activity finder usually, you can now upload your virtual activity sessions by ticking the online box when you upload. A last couple of pieces of information focusing specifically on the recent work of our children and young people team. The Norfolk School Games team have taken the Norfolk School Games virtual. Each week they have been setting a series of virtual challenges for schools, children, parents and family members to take part in. So please share these and get involved with your family by having a go. You can send your videos and photos by tagging Norfolk School Games on social media or emailing schoolgames@activenorfolk.org. The team have also worked with the school sports partnerships to develop a weekly schedule of physical activity themed content for children. This includes physical activity skills, creative tasks, and activity themed maths and English activities too. So lastly, supporting young people to be active during lockdown is really important. So for those of you that have delivered on our Satellite Club programme, we've opened a fund to help you take this virtual. There is a grant of £300 available to deliver virtual online sessions to inactive people aged 14 to 19. We ask that you deliver a minimum of 60 minutes of physical activity content online each week. And to find out more, please contact our colleague George Webster, who heads up this programme. This funding will be available to any satellite clubs that have received satellite club funding over the last 5 years. So finally, as we've already said, the team at Active Norfolk are here to support you. If you are unsuccessful with a Sport England application or have a training need or want to use this time to think about the future, do get in touch for a discussion and we will direct you to the right member of the team. So I really appreciate that we've provided quite a quick run through of a lot of information this morning, and not all of it will be relevant to everyone on this webinar. So our hope is that where information is not directly relevant to you, you will be able to help us share it across your networks. We want to thank you for joining us on this webinar. Please stay in touch and do come to us if you have any further queries. We're happy to stay online for a few more minutes in case you have any questions that we may be able to help with now. Equally, feel free to contact us via email later today or over the coming days and weeks. And as I say, we'll be really happy to help where we can.
So like I say, there's a period now, like I say, we did schedule an hour and a half. We weren't sure how long it's going to go, but obviously, if we can obviously get people out, obviously, before lunch, obviously, we all know is important. Obviously, enjoying the lovely weather, which we're experiencing at the minute. Obviously, get outside and do our one piece of exercise. If you have, like I say, if you have got any questions, obviously, we'll hang around for probably the next 20 minutes. Obviously, we'll be on here. So if you have got anything, like I say, pop something in the chat and we can obviously see to answer, or like Rich said, pop us an email post obviously the webinar. I will be sending out, it'll be shortly, probably this afternoon at some point, a copy of the slides, a copy of the webinar recording, so obviously you can share with any colleagues that maybe couldn't join us, or you can listen back to, and on that we'll also have the question sheet of the application to help you should you wish to obviously apply. Anything else? Let's say if there is anything, let's say do. If not, enjoy the rest of your day, and let's say you know where we are if you need us during this pandemic. And let's say we are here to support the physical activity sector throughout this. So many thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Paula. Yeah, as we know, I'm certainly finding personally, and I know many others are, that sport and physical activity is a really great way to cope during this really challenging time, and it really helps people with their mental health. So yeah, much appreciated, and thanks to you for sharing the resources with your contacts through Mind. Ben, I'm just looking at your comment around sports clubs gaining funding for upfront block bookings. Do you want to pop me an email with a little bit more detail, and I'm happy to pick that up over email or over the phone later today.
Hi Chris, yes, we will be sending out the slides today. So like I say, you'll get a copy of the audio, a copy of the slides, obviously with everything in. So like I say, you'll obviously have that ready, and like I say, I hopefully get that out at the end of the day, as long as the recording obviously has all gone smoothly. So yeah, so if you just keep an eye out for an email from me today, obviously you'll have all that information. If there's no further questions or anything, we'll obviously end this meeting now. So thank you very much. Let's say anything, drop us a line, and you know where we are if you need us. Many thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.